Be happy to take a few questions and take it out. And if you have books, I'll be happy to sign them at the end of this too. I read that story a couple of weeks ago in my hometown of Peekskill, New York. It's the quadricentennial of when Henry Hudson discovered the place. And one of the questions from the audience was, you know, you're such a nice guy. How can you create characters like this? And I had to blame it on a diseased childhood. But of course, in fact, I think, you know, my job is to inhabit any character of any sex or ethnicity or anything else. I mean, that's part of what I think a good novelist and short story writer is supposed to do. So even though, yes, I agree, I am just a sweet and generous and wonderful man. And the woman went on for about a half hour with the praise of me, but I won't repeat it all here. Yeah, I think it's fun to write a character like this. It's a lot of fun. And in many ways, of course, easier than creating the purely good character. That's the real conundrum. As you may know, I don't have anything to do with film adaptations in my work. I love film, and I'm a huge fan of films, but I'm a control freak, folks. And I don't want to cooperate with anybody on anything ever. I only want to do what I'm going to do. I couldn't imagine, even for a second, cooperating with anybody on anything. So I've always hoped for the best with the films, and so far, most of the films that have been made of my work, mainly short films, have been pretty good. And it's so interesting to see how they're cast and how they're presented. It's as if I were a songwriter and I'd written a song and performed it in my own way, and now somebody else is doing it. I have the same experience when actors, like in selected shorts, or speaking of stories up in Santa Barbara, will read one of my stories. Sometimes they're great. Sometimes you're going to get right up and choke them to death and read it yourself. But you know, you just let it roll. Unless you're going to take over every single job in the whole history of the world, you just can't do it. A couple of weeks maybe, it all depends on the story. And you know, there's a lot of worry in between. You know, when I'm done at work, 2 o'clock, that's it, 2, 3, whatever it is, whatever stage I'm in, then I go out and do something physical. I'm great at digging holes and filling them back in again. I do a lot of that. And I'm not thinking about it consciously, but I think somehow that's a period of gestation. But anyway, your question. I call writing an obsessive compulsive disorder. I work every day, not today, but I work every day pretty much. And I've just finished a novel in July, and now I'm writing new short stories. I have a very new one I could have given you tonight, but I realized that it has to be done in a country accent, and I don't know if I'm up to doing a country accent, so maybe this is one we'll save for actors. So I'm in a period of writing stories. I know what the next novel will be, but I won't start that until possibly in the spring sometime. I want to now have a period of writing stories. I've written 3 new ones. I'm looking forward next week to beginning something else. You'll notice that it's very rhythmic. That's why I love to read it aloud. It's, to me, the language has to be beautiful, and it also has to have a rhythm and a beat to it, like music. I've never written anything without music playing in the background. And back to you with the question about stories. You know, I'm dedicated to short stories. You know, people say, well, you'll make any money on them. I don't care. This is what I do in life. So here I was many years ago as an impressionable student at the University of Iowa Writers' Workshop, and Stanley Elkin came to town. Stanley Elkin, I don't know if you know him, was an astonishing comedian and a great writer of long sentences with lots of metaphors in each one. In fact, that was probably his weakness, too many metaphors in each sentence. But Stanley was the most brilliant performer of his own work I've ever heard. He was great. So we students asked him questions, as you're asking of me. And one was, Mr. Elkin, you know, you've written one collection of stories some years ago, Criers and Kibitzers, Kibitzers and Criers. It's really great. Well, why aren't you writing stories anymore? He said, no money in it. Next question. And so, you know, we were very disillusioned by this. I've never taken a short story and expanded it. I'm very consciously aware that this is going to be a story or this is going to be a novel, and I write them in separate periods. The joy of writing a story is that anything that you tell me tonight, anything I experience, anything I read, can be incorporated into or made into a story the next day, and I'm right on top of it. The The downside of that is in between stories, you know, you realize that you're completely worthless, you've never written before, you'll never write again, you want to hang yourself. A novel, on the other hand, the downside is you can't incorporate things. You're locked into a period and a tone and a voice. That is the toughest thing, to sustain something over a year or 2 years of writing in the same mode and voice. But the good thing is, you know what you're going to do tomorrow morning when you wake up. So I like to alternate between the two because it's just a natural rhythm for me. I like to explore things. You're referring to a story called Carnal Knowledge, which is, I guess, a Thanksgiving story because they go to liberate a turkey farm, Hedda Gabler's turkey farm, by the way, in Northern California, just before, you know, Thanksgiving to save these turkeys. I'm just exploring things. I think if you read all of my work, by the way, I have good news for you. If you enjoyed what I did tonight, I'm willing to come to your house and read individually to each of you for $10,000 an hour. No problem, no problem. If you read all my work, you know where I stand on various issues. So that, for instance, when I wrote A Friend of the Earth, which is about the environmental movement, I came back from the book tour and looked on my webpage, and people were having a debate. Is he an environmentalist or is he not? Well, yes, I am. Yes, I am, but I'm not going to push any position on you. I'm going to, that's not what art is supposed to do. Art is supposed to engage you so that you are part of the work yourself and you make your own decision. Well, I only teach fiction writing, and there is no teaching involved. I'm a coach. I'm their coach, you know, as I suppose Tim is the coach of the young actors. I mean, they have it. There's a tremendous pool of talent, and you guide them. Basically, you just need to give them encouragement and turn them on to various things. And in my case, various works of literature that they might not know about, that might appeal to them, and let them go on their own way. There's nothing that can be taught. There are no rules to what we do. Yes, of course, we hope, we all hope that we progress and that we get better. But we all know that, in fact, we're all doomed and we'll all be dead soon. And in fact, the whole human race and species will be extinct soon with 7 billion of us on the planet, but let's not get into that. In terms of the young artists, they need what I needed, and that's basically just someone to give them a voice and a pat on the shoulder and say, all right, kid, you're on your way, you know? And the format of the class in a workshop is this. The author says nothing, just sits there. We have already read the work. It's been printed. We've read it. We've digested it. We've written about it. And now we are trying to dissect it in the way of a book group. How is it made? What do you understand of this in an interpretive way? And the author can sit there and think, well, yeah, gee, maybe that ending is a little confusing. Nobody got it. Or the author can say, hey, screw you. You know, I'm going to do whatever I want. It just gives the author sort of guinea pigs to see how the work goes off. And of course, each semester too, I'm teaching in conjunction some contemporary books that kind of blew me away and that might have interesting structural approaches, just to give them some examples. But that's about it. I mean, it's like going to Juilliard, you know, to play your violin. If you get into Juilliard, you're great, and then you study with the masters, but what are they teaching you? Maybe some refinement. That's about it. And experience. You have the experience of doing it. So it's all a lesson, but that by osmosis. I mean, we're not promoting anything. We have no rules. We're just artists trying to explore what art is, and we treat the stories and novels by professional writers no differently from how we would treat what the students are doing. Two more. Yes. No, I have no one to show it to, although Frau Boyle, and I won't point her out here tonight. I read to her every day when I'm working on something, not so she can say good or bad, just to hear it out loud, to hear the rhythm. And it's funny, in reading it out loud to her, I can make leaps of what it is about, what the themes are, where it's going, that I couldn't make otherwise reading it to myself. I really don't have much participation of editors. Pretty much what I turn in is what's going to be printed. In fact, I even do space and a half on my computer, so it'll be exactly to the page. It's just that I'm a sort of obsessive compulsive person, and it's perfect as I can make it. I rewrite the lines over and over till it's just right. Each day, as many of you will know, I'm looking at the crowd, I would guess about 87% of you are novelists yourselves. You try to get into that unconscious place, and you don't always succeed. But to try to get there, I begin with what I've written previously, and go over it and over it and over it, and hopefully get into this unconscious place, and when I wake up, work is over for the day. The beauty of what I'm doing is anything that interests me, I can write a novel about it. I wanted to go to Alaska, so I wrote Drop City. I live in a Frank Lloyd Wright house, so I wrote The Women about Frank Lloyd Wright. I just wanted to know more about him, so that's the beauty. You know, I already confessed to you that I have to drive up that coast highway once a week. And I've been in Santa Barbara for 17 years. And I saw those Channel Islands out there, and I wondered, what goes on out there? Now I know. I've written a book called When the Killing's Done, but it won't be out for a while yet because they have to space the books. So, you know, we have Wild Child this winter, so it won't be till the following winter till it comes out. Anyway, I was fascinated by the ecological restoration out there. I don't know if you know the story of the dwarf foxes and their march to extinction and how they were saved. It's preposterous, but real and wonderful. I thought, if only I could meet or talk to one of the biologists, this would be great. I met them all. I went with the fox lady and tramped up and down the mountains. Each mountain is like this wall here, only 100 times higher, and you're in the middle of nowhere. No one lives out there. It's 4 times the size of Manhattan. Dew is dripping. It's 5:30 in the morning, and this fox lady makes me look fat, walking up and down these hills, and 24 traps, and you see a little flag a mile in the distance, and that's where you have to go for the next one. But it was great, and I learned a lot, a really wonderful experience. In short, and it's about the battle for possession of this place. You know, there were protesters of killing off the invasive species, and it started with Anacapa, where the wreck of the Winfield Scott paddle wheel steamer coming from San Francisco wrecked there in fog in 1856. The rats got off the ship and onto Anacapa, and they have lived there ever since. And of course, their ground nesting birds have evolved without rats, and the rats were depleting their numbers. So the Park Service flew in with helicopters and bombed the place with brodifacoum, which is exactly the blood thinner that you use in rat pellets. And of course, people have heart attacks. It's the same stuff. It thins the blood, and they bleed out. And there were protesters. One guy went out there and with big bags of vitamin K, which is the antidote, and threw it all over the island and got arrested, and it was a court case and so on. So that was the starting point. The first third of the book is in Anacapa. The other 2/3 are in Santa Cruz. I discovered some wonderful stories. It's set contemporaneously, but there are some historical flashbacks. It's fascinating material, and you may know this is our least visited national park. Why? You have to puke for an hour and a half to get there. You know, that's the problem. The channel is pretty rough. Well, thank you so much, folks. It's been a joy. Thank you.